If there's one thing I've learned since Trump turned America's political discourse to the equivalent of a WWE promo, is that conservatives lack media literacy. As a matter of fact, there are studies that suggest that they also have higher susceptibility to political misrepresentation. Over a span of 6 months, Garrett and Bunn combined social media engagement data with a 12-wave pedal study of America's political knowledge in high-profile news. To put it bluntly, conservatives didn't fare as well. So, next time you get called a sissy boy liberal on Twitter for daring to point out similarities between the orange and mustache man's political ideologies, know that they aren't evil. They just actually believe crime's on the rise in DC, and the only way to stop anarchy is complete federal control. Wait, don't you guys hate government intervention? Anyways, what I've come to notice is that the conservative get out of jail free card when discussing anything of relevance is that we're making something out of nothing. When on the back foot, they'll dismiss any important points by denying its political nature. Well, the truth is everything is political. In One Piece, it's a love letter to anti-fascism. But in the spirit of show not tell, today we're going to walk through all forms of government and how the Straw Hats have interacted with them in some way, shape, or form.
I didn't say you guys could do that!
Yeah! Guess it's official now! Let's get this party started already! I thought you never asked!
Let us feast in honor of the Straw Hat Fleet! 5,600 strong!
Before we get to the meat and potatoes, we have to ask, who are the Straw Hat Pirates? It's time to put on my pseudo-psychology clip on time. Seriously, I'm not a psychologist, so take all this with a grain of salt, but by analyzing Luffy's character, we get a clear illustration of motivations of the whole crew. Don't get it twisted, Luffy may be easygoing, but at the end of the day, Straw Hats are a brand created as a direct manifestation of his goals and motivations. Luffy's outgoing, he's assertive, and constantly chasing stimulation. He has a huge imagination and high level of curiosity that lends to a concrete moral compass. I feel the need to provide some context to morality. After all, this is a story about a criminal. Oxford defines morality as the accepted norms and standards of conduct of a society, community, or nation. Community is the key word for Luffy. Initially, his community is small: Curly, Dan Dan, Ace, and Sabo. Curly raised Luffy and Ace, giving them a stable home. Throw in the fact that she herself was a former pirate, these kids are imparted with a certain level of toughness. Due to his small world, Ace becomes an emotional anchor. And although it's in an infantile state, this is the origin of Luffy's loyalty to friends and family. Sabo goes on to be the same, but for his idealism and sense of freedom. As I previously mentioned, nothing's set in stone yet. Luffy's character is still growing, but there are 3 key events that set him on the path to become king of the pirates and change the world in the process. First, Luffy meets Shanks. With the absence of a religion, Shanks almost becomes a pseudo-god to Luffy. Or, at the very least, some form of mythical figure. He fosters Luffy's imagination and sets him on a path to follow his dreams. Garp comes back into Luffy's life and ironically establishes a rebellious streak in independence. By trying to mold Luffy into this supermarine, he begins to represent the system Luffy has to resist. Finally, the most important part, Sabo's death locks all this in. It's a traumatic loss that fueled Luffy's determination to protect those that he loves. As I mentioned earlier, the Straw Hats are criminals, but they're criminals in a specific way. The Straw Hats are criminals in the same way that the Founding Fathers and Black Panthers were criminals. You see, on a macro level, a totalitarian oligarchy has formed in the world of One Piece. The Celestial Dragons are at the apex of power and inherent government control. Why?
Remember, capitalism. It's the only thing keeping us from being communists.
Celestial Dragons control immense wealth, trade, and resources across the One Piece world. The wealth comes from privatized enterprises, taxation, and monopolies, which are enforced by the world government. The best real-world equivalents I can think of, well, not counting our similarities, is ancient Rome. Oda hasn't gone into detail yet, but from what we know so far, the world government has emerged from a coalition of powerful kingdoms after a major war. These kingdoms allied to defeat their rival, the Ancient Kingdom, and ultimately look to take over the world through censorship, propaganda, military might, and fear. The years 509 through 27 BCE, the Roman Republic was run by patrician families. 100 BCE through 14 BCE, the late Republic and Principate generals and emperors centralized power. The legions enforced laws and suppressed any hints at rebellion via violence. 27 BCE onwards, we see the same pattern of wealthy elites using propaganda to manipulate the masses and ultimately stay in power. Don't worry, conservatives. It's just the oldest play in the book. What's unique is, in One Piece, this has occurred on a global scale. It opened the door for small islands to establish their own forms of local government. At times, these micro-governments mirror the fascist-like ideals of larger government, and at others, they are entirely different. Let's start with what's similar and work our way away.
なんだこの怪物は。くそ頭痛い。死ねねえもんだな。また生きちまった。うまくやったよ。白い毛のじじいは。死に場所を求める男の名は百獣のカイドウ。
After Kaido takes over, the traditional government structure of Wano is thrown entirely on its head. When power vacuums manifest, the absence of government or formal authority generally leads to anarchy. When there's anarchy, different factions can take control, and if a faction gains the upper hand, an authoritarian anarchy is born. We've even seen this happen in the real world. Two great examples occurred in Somalia and Afghanistan. Spoiler, we helped cause both.
If you guys had let the goddamn fire go out, they would have seen it. Hey man, we were hunting. Ray killed a pig. Face it, Jack, you fucked up. We could have been rescued. Back off, man. I'm sick of your shit, and so's my gang. Your gang? What's that supposed to mean? What it means, Colonel, is that if you know what's good for you, you'll stop trying to run everything. Stop it! I'm sick of all this shit. I'm gonna make another camp for hunters. You guys wanna have a little fun? Yeah! Come on, Jack, that's crazy. We've gotta work together. Come on, what do you say? I say fuck you. And that goes for you too, Miss Piggy. Come on, let's get out of this kindergarten.
I want to point out that any arguments for the Straw Hats supporting anarchy due to how they value freedom is supported by a logical fallacy. In the end, anarchy is almost always going to lead to power imbalance. Power imbalance leads to authoritarianism, which Luffy has literally taken bullets for. They bounce off of him, but still. Though power often is passed from faction to faction, generally one individual is never able to consolidate it. That being said, it has happened before in history. In these cases, societies go on to become monarchies.
お前は飾りかよモモこの世にまだ怖えもんがあんのか父がくれた拙者の名は天下無敵の意味を持つそのために働き力を貸してくれ20年の時を超え皆を救いにやってきたこれより拙者光月桃之助が和の国を統治いたす
Contrary to popular belief, monarchies aren't inherently a problem. There are plenty of progressive monarchs in world history that put people first. One such example is Joseph II in Austria.
January 12th, 1782. Austrian Emperor Joseph II announces another of his groundbreaking reforms across the Habsburg monarchy. Following the abolition of serfdom and the legalization of religious tolerance the previous year, the next radical step is the dissolution of monasteries.
In One Piece, we actually see that Straw Hats have more positive interactions than negative with monarchs. Don't know how realistic the statistics is, but fantasy world, just roll with it. King Neptune on Fishman Island, King Nefertiti on Alabasta, and Kozuki Mononosuke in Wano. We're led to believe that these are all examples of mildly progressive and good leaders. Monarchy generally only becomes an issue when the leader is prone to manipulation, bigotry, or power seeking. Two of which we see in our next example with God King Enel.
And soon, I will return to the wide open sky, the perfect home for a god, pristine and unobstructed. Yes, and best of all, no pests to get in my way.
A theocracy is a government ruled by religious leaders or based on religious laws, though Enel is a self-proclaimed god rather than a traditional religious leader. His rule combines religious and political power, a hallmark of theocracy. His governance suppresses dissent not only through force, but also by divine decree. Enel has established himself as an authoritarian and theocratic monarch. It brings a new flavor to the phrase, God bless the king, when you realize this is literally the means of control established in medieval England.
Puritans in early 17th century England were not happy people. They had spent the better part of the last half of Queen Elizabeth's reign desperately trying to get Queen Elizabeth to legislate changes in the Anglican Church, in the Church of England, to make the church more reformed, to conform the church more to their idea of the kind of church it should be, devoid of a lot of the vestiges of the Roman Catholic faith, a lot of the ceremony, the vestments, the incense, all of those things, those trappings that they felt needed to go away, that were incompatible with Scripture. She was very reluctant to make any changes at all. They got nowhere with her. And so when James I comes to the throne in 1603, they're hoping that since he was raised in a Reformed Protestant church, that he would be more sympathetic with the Puritan point of view. They thought. They went to see him, and he was very unresponsive. In fact, he basically told them, if you persist in trying to get me to change the church, I will harry you out of the land.
And the harrying out of the land is what really happens to William Bradford and the people that he's close to. It was not only Bradford and his people. There were other people who also were harried. Some of them evidently died in jail. Some of them went to Holland. Some of them kind of disappeared off into the country.
Don't laugh too hard, Americans. If these ideals didn't exist, we wouldn't be here. The authoritarian and theocratic elements of medieval England were a key factor in motivating some colonists to leave for America. They became refugees in an effort to escape state sanction and religious persecution. The Crown's control over trade, land grants, and resources made colonists seek economic independence, and we all know how that story ended. Finally, get to the point of the video. America is meant to be a democratic republic. As a democracy, power is held by the people, and as a republic, this power is meant to be acted on by appointed representatives. So, you might be asking,
why the man spend on YouTube? What's the problem?
Well, if you let me explain. Democratic republics are only an ethical form of governance when there are checks and balances in place, and there's an absence of totalitarian tactics. The checks and balances ensure a fair distribution of power, but it's only effective when you're accounting for lobbying. That's why it's important to put safeguards in place to avoid totalitarian tactics. Political parties frequently become festering bedpans of corruption, pumping out propaganda to protect the interests of powerful private investors. Add in polarizing tactics of two-party systems, and you get a vintage wine with a rich note of plutocracy. The crazy thing is that Luffy comes from a localized democratic republic. There's definitely hints of corruption here and there, hence all the criminals roaming the streets, but people handle the village really well. Fuchsia is a small village where people know each other. There's no formal governments, but Mayor Boodle is an elected official, and community acts apparently suggest an informal sense of self-governance. By comparison, imagine a Straw Hat stumbling onto American soil and getting that first bite of a Tex-Mex barbacoa taco, only for an ICE agent to show up and threaten to kidnap the shop owner. Pretty sure your imagination can fill in the gaps from there. Thank you for listening. If you made it this far, please subscribe, share, and like, and leave a comment if you have any ideas for what you want to see next. Till then, wish you a great life. See you next time.